Yeah, so my grandparents were from Gujarat, and my father traveled to Kenya in the 1940s. And I was born there in Kisumu in Kenya in 1954. And I came to the UK in 1973. My father came on his own first. I think he was only about 16-year-old, and it was quite a cultural shock for him because when he arrived, he stayed with some friends in Nakuru, and used to have those Maasai dancers coming out, and they used to have skulls, and so he saw them first time, and he was so scared that he didn't come out of the house for about 2 weeks because he was only 16-year-old, and that was his first experience there. But then gradually he gained his confidence, and then he did very well there. Yeah, I mean, actually, Kenya and I think probably Uganda and Tanzania, they were like just India at the time. You wouldn't even realize that you are outside India because it's such a quite a big community, close knit community. So we had our own schools, temples, community centers, and Gujarati was an official part of the syllabus that everybody used to learn, not only Gujaratis. Even if you're a Punjabi from any other background, Gujarati was a compulsory subject. So many Sikhs actually speak Gujarati so well. That's how it happened. It was like I only found out that actually I was in Africa, or I was not uh, uh, in a country that was of my origin when I was about 8 year old, and the war started between China and India, and my parents were very. I saw them; they were very sad. They were sitting there, and they said, and I was only 8 year old, and I asked them, "What happened? Why are you so sad?" And they said, "Well, the war has started, and China has attacked India." And then I said, "Well, why are you worried? We are here in Kenya." And my mother said to me, "Yeah, but we are Indians." That is when actually I realized that though I was Indian, I was born in Kenya, and so it was like that. Yeah. There was something unique about East African Indians because I don't know, because they had left one country of their origin. So in East Africa, there was a huge community spirit. Everybody helped each other out. People who arrived, they would stay with relations or friends for months and months. Then they would find a job for them and then settle them down. I mean, there are stories about, my relations used to live in Mombasa. And, the ship used to come to Mombasa. So everybody would actually first land in Mombasa. And their home would actually, on an average day, have about 10, 15, 20 people staying there, people just in transit. But some spirit was so strong that nobody felt, oh, this is odd or this is difficult or we can't do it. It was just sort of supporting each other, and it went through all the way. And that's why I think we did so well in East Africa. I came down because obviously, we had British passports, and Kenya had the Africanization policy because I just finished my school, and really you couldn't work there because you were not Kenyan citizen. Uh, so the only option was to come to UK as a British passport holder. So that's how I came here in 1973, and I think I arrived on a Wednesday, and they took me. My friends took me for an interview to effect. I think it was Philips on Pearlyway, and they said, "Well, you start a job on Monday," and 18 pounds a week, and on a Wednesday they would pick you up and take you to Croydon for some shopping in the lunch hour. And in the mornings, they used to pick you up and drop you to work and take you back. So that's how it started. And I worked there for a few years, and then uh, no, I only worked there for about 6 months, and then I got a job with Croydon Council in the housing department. And I had a few other jobs because you could only qualify to go to university with a grant if you had been in this country for 3 years. So that's how I worked for about 3 years, and then I went to university to do a degree. There was a very good community spirit because a lot of people were just arriving here. So, a lot of events were taking place. But what I found was that the local community, the local English people were very, very friendly. They would always help you, support you at work. So, they give you the enough encouragement to go forward. So that was something that we remember very well. I know an English lady used to come and teach my mother English later on when she came to UK. So those are some very, very good memories. And then as time went on, you got more confident, and then you attempted to do more things. When I worked in the council, I was again, it was a very different environment, and in the housing department. And one thing that I still remember was people used to send in their whatever the queries or applications, and used to process it. And sometimes the handwriting and the grammar were so by our East African standards, they were so low, and I couldn't ever just believe that they were being written by local English people, because our education in East Africa was quite good. When you learnt English, you learned proper spellings and grammar, and it was quite a cultural shock, because you thought that when you're in England, everybody was be amazing in speaking and writing. So that was quite interesting for me. There was a group that I joined immediately when I came here. It was called the Keep the Pond Tidy, because there were some concerned citizens that they said, that little roundabout there, which is called the pond, should be kept nice and clean. So we organized a small group. We used to go to those local shops to get them to keep the pond tidy. We got the council involved. So that was my first experience of working for the local community, because I was very determined that we should not repeat the mistakes that we made in East Africa, which was that we did a lot of things, but somehow the perception was that we didn't do much for the Africans, or for the country that we were living in. And I wanted to make sure that we don't repeat that here. So that's why I started getting involved in local community, local action groups with the local people. So yeah, at the time there were very few shops that were owned by Indians, but now obviously it's become a great center for people to come and shop. When I came here in 1973, I was just studying, looking around the community, and I thought that as time goes by, there are going to be two very important questions that we're going to face, which is the Gujarati language. How do we maintain that, and our diet. So, because traditionally we come from a Hindu background or a Jain background, and we were traditionally all vegetarian, and at the time, the school lunches would only provide you non-vegetarian food. So I thought, how do we work so that the two of these very important aspects of our culture can be kept alive? So that's how we started the Gujarati classes. I think it was in early 1975, and they were the first Gujarati classes in London. There have been Gujarati classes before that in Leicester, but the first Gujarati class in London was started here with me and Bharat Shah and a few of us under the auspices of Oshwal Association, which then later bought that property there, which became, still is, quite a center of activities. Almost 40 years that this thing has been going on, and some of the students who used to come are now in their 50s or late 40s. So sometimes we meet them and they say, look, the experiences we had in the Gujarati classes has been so important to us, and it has shaped our lives. So it really feels good that whatever time you gave and effort, and it was completely voluntary, that it's become been so important for so many people whose lives have been changed. So, as you probably realize, that over the last 20 years, there's been a much bigger migration of Gujaratis, as well as non-Gujaratis from India, and these are all professionals, IT, and a lot of them have now stayed in Croydon, not very far from here. And obviously, there is now a demand for somewhere where the children can go and learn from a Hindu ethos background, which is what the government is actually promoting. There's so many Christian-based schools, Sikh, as well as Muslim-based schools. So, for the first time, we campaigned to start a Hindu ethos school, which the government has approved and now is up and running. And every year we'll get a new intake of students, and then the classrooms will grow bigger, and the school will get to its maximum size. Within the Jain philosophy idea, the concept of ahimsa is very important. Ahimsa means non-violence, so that you should not harm any living being thing, and that's a very central concept. So that's how Jains would not harm any insects or any living being, and that's how they've been vegetarians. And so, my parents and my generations and generations of people in my past, in my family, have never eaten meat. So vegetarianism is a very crucial part of that non-violence, not ahimsa. But what was amazing was when I started sort of, we formed the Young Indian Vegetarian Society, and I found out that actually there was a vegetarian society already in Croydon, because there have always been English people who have been vegetarians for many, many years, over the last 200 years. And there was a vegetarian society in UK which was formed right when Gandhiji had come here in 1888. So suddenly we found that we had a common interest with people in this country who were very, very passionate vegetarians. So that's how our activity started. And then over the years, I was quite involved in the Vegetarian Society of UK. And something we started then was we used to organize a Christmas vegetarian lunch. This is again, when I mentioned to you earlier that I wanted to make sure that we put something back in the community that we live in, and we also do things so that local people, the English people, would actually get to know who we are. So for the last 37 years, we organize a Christmas vegetarian lunch, in which we invite mostly our English friends who are, it could be your work colleague, your bank manager, your school teachers, people from local churches, all these people. So we have about 120 people, and we say to them, it's Christmas time, it's a celebration, and we'll give you a nice vegetarian meal. So we sit down together and we have that meal. And when you sit down and eat together, all the differences, all the doubts, all the fears that you have of people disappear. And so these people, when we all sit down together, we get to know each other very well. They get to know us very well, and they find out that we are good citizens. We are loyal citizens to this country. We are law abiding, and we wish the best for this country, and that has been an amazing success. But what also happened was then, in the 1990s, we started organizing bigger events. So we organized a huge vegetarian rally in 1990 in Hyde Park, and somehow it sort of was a catalyst, and the media covered it all over the country. There was a vegetarian rally, and Tony Benn, the famous politician, the late Tony Benn, he was a vegetarian. He came to the rally, and Lord Bernard Wetherill, who was a Speaker of Parliament, who was also from Croydon and a vegetarian, he also came down. And there were all these people, and there were hundreds of people there. And suddenly, vegetarianism became a thing that everybody was talking about. And suddenly, we realized that actually there were thousands and thousands of English people who were vegetarian. So that's how the whole thing took off. And over the years, we uh, also started helping so many animal sanctuaries. There are so many animal sanctuaries also in this country where people take in abundant animals, animals that are going to slaughterhouses, horses, donkeys, cows, pigs. And there are so many compassionate people who actually take these animals in and look after them. And we support so many of them also. We also give Mahavir awards to individuals who work very hard for the cause of compassion to animals. So, so like that, we've been working over the years. After a few years, you know, having stayed in this country, you also begin to realize what are the issues that you have, and when when you hear about the divorce rate in this country, the family breakdown, how it was so different from our family system. So I wrote the first book, which was called "The Future in Your Hands," in which I compared the Western uh, structure, family structure, and the way they will live, and the Indian family structure, and how we could actually learn from each other, and and create a family system in which children would grow up respecting their elders and respecting the environment, and learning to be successful in their lives. So that was my first book, and then um, to further make Gujarati more popular in this country, I wrote a book called Easy Gujarati, because there are so many Gujarati classes running in this country, and the emphasis is for people to pass the exams. So the success rate is that, oh, you got the O level, and and most people do get the O levels because it's pretty straightforward. But they still don't speak the language. They can write because they don't even read much, but they can pass the exams. So my emphasis is that actually, if they pass an exam or they read and write, it's a bonus. My emphasis is that they should be speaking Gujarati. Everything else is secondary. So that's how I prepared a book called Easy Gujarati, which would make it fun for children to learn Gujarati and to speak Gujarati. So that book has become very popular all over the country. I made this attempt to put all the positive stories, and that goes back right from the beginning. How ancient this civilization is, that actually it is the oldest civilization in the world, and it is a living civilization. There are so many civilizations which have been in the world. There was an Egyptian civilization, there was a so many other Greek, Roman civilizations, but with the passing of time, they were all disappeared. What is it about Indian civilization that it's still alive, going back tens of thousands of years? So there's something very unique about our heritage. As time passes, there's always going to be issues and different challenges, and uh, we are now in a position where we got the third generation growing up in this country, and necessarily they are not so much uh, uh, influenced or interested on our heritage, our values, and there's something you can't stop because they've grown up in this country. And so what I'm now doing is, like, I'm sort of studying this situation, and I write articles, and I actually just observe things so that we can know where we are going. And so sometimes it's quite funny, the stories that, for example, the new generation and how they bring up their children, uh, and how everything is by the book, which was not what how we were brought up. You were just brought up and you're just running around and playing around, and the new parents are, everything by the book. You can't give them that this sweet, or you can't give them that, and they're so protective. And sometimes I look back and I tell them, sometimes, that, do you remember that actually this world is very old, and people have been born for thousands and thousands of years, and they've lived and they've survived. So just relax. So this is the new generation that we're talking about. The other thing is about uh, how, the other example is how the youth imbibe different things. Like in English culture, when an English girl gets married, it has been a tradition, like it is the most important day of her life. it's emphasized again and again, the happiest day of my life, the most important day of my life. And how the Indian girls have actually taken this on board in a massive scale. So while an English wedding, you might have about 40 people and 50 at the most, and they have their great event. Now our girls have taken this idea of this is the best day of my life, and you know they're spending what about 40, 50, 60,000 pounds on weddings now, with 2,000 guests, and what I observe is that even after spending that all that money, the girl is so full of so tensed. She's not relaxed right up to the moment the wedding takes place, because she wants to be in control of everything. Even the tablecloth that it is put on the dining table, she will decide what color it is. So the whole process of wedding now, in spite of spending all this money, the parents are so tensed up. The girl is so tensed up. Nobody's enjoying the wedding actually, really. So these sometimes look like funny things, but these are observations that they're important to see how we are actually now progressing. Our children have imbibed that automatically. Like for example, they you'll see how they react in every situation. It's very sort of methodic. If you, right, we are like we tend to be a bit emotional, but you leave any question to our children, they will just be very methodic. They will not be emotional. They'll be finding a solution very quickly and adapt to it. And look where it has got them. I mean, the achievements of our kids in this country, I think there's no parallel in the world. I mean, there's no ceilings that they've not smashed. In medicine, in every subject you can think of, and the charity work that they do. There'll be doctors and dentists and professors, and they will just go off and do some charity work in a village in Uganda or a village in Gujarat. These are the things that they have actually. These are the positive things that they will learn from this society, that you can do things differently, and you can achieve goals differently, and you don't all have to be doctors or dentists, and the great thing about our culture is that we do adapt also. Uh, uh, as much as father will say that, oh, I want you to be a doctor, but there's no, they don't really become too serious about it. They let go, and we have let our children go. And the other thing they've done is, which is amazing, is that how they've actually broken all the caste barriers, because in the 70s and 80s, most of the weddings would only take place within the caste, and today, it's so common that a Patel will marry a Brahmin or vice versa, and you know the great thing is we've just taken it. I can think of other cultures where it would have become a huge issue and conflict. But the Gujarati community said, yeah, well, it doesn't make sense. Our kids don't think twice about it, and you get they're all doing so well.